everybody. Hopefully, everyone's having a great day. My name is Marcel, and today I'll be talking to you guys about some Hawaiian honey creepers. This mainly for everybody to enjoy, but mainly for those of you who've never heard of about Hawaiian honey creepers, or just here to learn about something new, whatever suits you guys, I guess. So let me get into present over here. So as you can see, I named my slideshow today as the Darwin finches of Hawaii and Hawaiian honey creepers and what we can do to save them. So as you guys can see by the title, these beautiful birds, unfortunately aren't doing so well. So I'll be talking a little bit about that during my presentation today. So let's get into it. I'd like to start off this presentation with a nice quote I got from Charles Darwin, since we are talking about adaptive radiation in a bit. I think this quote kind of fits with the course's this slideshow today. So at some future period, not very distant, as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace the savage races throughout the world. So yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting when I first saw that. Considering what we're talking about here today about Hawaiian honey creepers, that these guys unfortunately aren't doing so well right now. So it shows you, as I'm going to talk about later on in the slideshow, that man has really caused some problems and has really, in a way, accidentally and sort of purposely, maybe not so much, maybe purposely, yeah, has caused these guys to unfortunately be on a decline. So let me just talk about why I chose to do a project about Hawaiian honey creepers. And basically, I live in Hawaii, and I've been exposed to many of nature's wonders in Hawaii. If you guys ever been to Hawaii, you know that Hawaii is one of the most beautiful and most diverse places in the world. I mean, they got some of the best untouched wonders. When the first humans arrived here, I'm sure they were surprised about how beautiful this place was. My interest started when I first, not when I was young, as maybe most people might have started, but I actually really gained an interest in high school when I actually learned about Darwin's finches in one of my classes. And one of the things that my teacher talked about was Hawaiian honey creepers. Unfortunately, it was pretty brief, so I didn't learn much about it at the time, but I really got hooked onto it. And then as going through my college career, um, Hawaiian honey creepers have been definitely something that's been talked a lot more, and it's something I definitely wanted to learn more about. Something I love to study in the future, and definitely something I want to share about those of you guys who have never seen or heard of Hawaiian honey creepers before. So a little bit about them. Hawaiian honey creepers are only native to Hawaii. There are about over 50 different species of Hawaiian honey creepers that have existed, and I think the key word there is that existed. And unfortunately, not all over 50 different species of Hawaiian creepers are still in existence today. Um, they're nectar eaters, but they can also eat bugs, other snails and stuff. Um, they pollinate Hawaii's forests. And I can see by this quote down here, recent evidence have shown that they're closely related to other type of finches, namely goldfinches, canaries, and also I didn't put it in here, but I think I'll talk about rose finches. So yeah, let's move on. So a little bit about the first ancestor of the Hawaiian honey creepers, believed to come from rose finches, which originated from Asia, most likely immigrated to Hawaii between 7.2 to 5.8 million years ago. Um, a team of scientists have actually done DNA sequencing techniques to help determine a likely ancestor to Hawaiian honey creeper, and that being most likely the rose finches from Asia. And basically, at this quote, you can see at the bottom, they basically studied 18 living honeycreeper species and one recently extinct group, and took DNA samples from them and also 28 bird species that appeared to share characteristics that were similar to the finches that we see today. And I came back to the one of the closest, excuse me, Rose's finches was one of the closest, I guess, first ancestor. So diversification, similar to what we see in the Galapagos with Darwin's finches, as the islands formed in the Hawaiian archipelago, many of these birds, or rather Hawaiian honeycreeper, spread out and relocated to different niches on the island. These different niches in Hawaii. First off, Hawaii has a lot of different niches, and you'd be surprised at, if you haven't been here or if you haven't lived here, how diverse and how amazing this place is. With you can see it, Mauna Kea with its huge peaks and snow and Haleakala. Then you go to the Hawaiian forests, and man, you can see all this beautiful, diverse ecosystem in action. And the Hawaiian honeycreepers are a part of that. And you can see with their beaks, as I'll show in a slide real soon, how diverse they are. And like Darwin's finches, they adapted to these niches to fit what they need to survive in these finches. So as you can see, some might have straight, long, thin bills. Some might have like big bulk. Um, uh, what's the word I'm looking at? Like almost like round, like short, not as long, and they use that to fit their niches. So that depends. Some of them might need that to for long flowers, for nectar. You might expect the longer ones to have that. Maybe the one with the bigger beaks. Maybe you need to have that extra force to break like snail shells or fruits to get valuable nutrients for themselves. So as you can see, this slide right here has that. As I was talking about the different kinds of beaks. So as you can see, the top left corner, you have this black Hawaiian creeper bird that has that sort of longer, narrow beak to compare to some of the ones on the bottom that have that huge, more round kind of beak. And it just all spread out and among different sizes. So as you can see, the top has a more small one compared to the one on the left that has sort of that round, or not round, but longer beak to sort of reach into the flower to get nectar. And this is just to show you how diverse these beautiful species are. And you can see how vibrant, how colorful these guys are. And that also shows the beauty of, I think, of how Hawaii is. Significance to the ecosystem. As I mentioned, they're pollinators. They definitely help Hawaii's forests. Um, Obviously, they're very endemic to Hawaii. They're also seed dispersers, so they can definitely disperse seeds. But the main thing is pollinators, and I'll talk about later on how that impact can affect Hawaii's ecosystem. So here's a picture just showing that Hawaiian finch that's on a beautiful blue flower, you know, just showing how important they are by being pollinators to Hawaii's forests and plants. So the importance of Hawaiian honeycreepers in early Hawaiian society. So Hawaiian society earlier on, pre Captain Cook arrival in the late 1700s, um, Hawaii had a sort of um, was ruled by a society where chiefs were the highest class. So it was a kind of a class system, and the chiefs were called alii, and these alii wore feather cloaks or capes, and these capes and cloaks and also feather helmets were made out of the feathers of Hawaiian honeycreeper. So that alone shows you how valuable these species were to the native Hawaiians. In ancient Hawaii, these feathers were very valuable items and a symbol of class. and you can see red and yellow. So if you go back to a couple slides ago, you can see red and yellow, different color Hawaiian honey creepers. Red and yellow were very important colors and very sought after for these Hawaiian royals. And with yellow being the most important or almost the most cherished color of the flower, or the rather feather for the capes, and seeing yellow would almost distinguish as basically the elite of the elite almost in ancient Hawaiian society. So here's just another picture showing you how important these feathers are to Hawaiian society, with the capes being decked in yellow and red feathers. And you can also see the helmets are also laid with red and yellow feathers. So it's just to enforce the point of how important Hawaiian honey creepers were to ancient Hawaiian society. Unfortunately, we're going to move on to some little negative news. Changes has occurred over the years. Unfortunately, Hawaii's forest has changed dramatically since the arrival of humans. Loss of land and trees means loss of nesting areas and um, valuable resources. So, losing these areas are where, where places where these Hawaiian honeycreepers might get food are gone. So the species that live there disappear. So that directly affects Hawaiian honeycreepers. New species have also been introduced to Hawaii since the first arrival of Polynesians and the arrival of Europeans, as you see later on. And warmer climate is also a big impact. And as you can see, I'll talk about later on how that directly impacts Hawaiian honeycreepers. So, fortunately, this picture is not as clear as I thought it was going to be, but you can see a dramatic change of how this landscape probably was once filled with trees. It has literally been um, cleaned out with open areas and less trees around. So, the decline of Hawaiian honeycreepers. Unfortunately, many Hawaiian honeycreepers have gone extinct over the many years since humans have arrived. As this quote I got, of the over 50 recognized species of Hawaiian honeycreepers, 30 are now extinct and 9 more are critically endangered, according to the IUCN Red List. First sign of loss began with the first arrival of Polynesian settlers. Although this wasn't huge, but as I mentioned before, Hawaiian honeycreepers were very important to Hawaiian society. They were used for feathers, but that directly didn't affect the Hawaiian honeycreepers. What really affected them was the introduction of rats that came over. Many of these rats came over and they sort of destroyed the Hawaii forest. I learned in class that these rats that came over destroyed and wiped out the flightless bird population that was on Hawaii. And these guys were actually stowed away on the ships or canoes that came over by the first Polynesian. And they also destroyed the Hawaiian forests and trees, and presumably many of these Hawaiian honey creepers had an effect because of the destroyed rainforest. And um, as you see, these guys also had a direct effect on um, the Hawaiian honey creepers themselves. And also, the introduction of new disease in animals by European explorers came. So I'll talk about a little bit of that in the next couple of slides as well. But also, the early laws were subject to habitat destruction as well. Habitat destruction mainly sort of came from rats as being one of them, but also loss of land from trees being cut down is one as another example of that as well. So some recent causes, malaria is a common killer of honey creepers, and I think this quote sort of I got sort of really shows that effect. With rising temperatures, mosquitoes have also been on the move up the mountains of the Hawaiian Islands, once a refugee for native bird, susceptible to mosquito-transmitted avian malaria. So this goes back to warmer climates, as I was talking about earlier. mosquitoes arrived here from the Europeans as they came, and they quickly spread. And these mosquitoes had not only a direct effect on Hawaiian honeycreepers, but Hawaiian society in general. Um, Many they brought diseases, and malaria was one of those they brought over, and they completely wrecked um, the Hawaiian honeycreepers. And the Hawaiian honeycreepers had no protection to these diseases. So many of these Hawaiian honeycreeper can be seen in higher elevations, but unfortunately, to these warmer climates, mosquitoes are not venturing into these higher climates, and these are not really, you know, hitting hard on the Hawaiian honeycreepers that have been living in these higher elevations and or have moved to these higher elevations. And unfortunately, it's really caused some damage. Also, habitat destruction is another cause, and as I talked about earlier, a loss of habitat has caused many honeycreepers to lose their homes, so many trees being cut down. They have to relocate, nesting areas are being lost, and many of these Hawaiian honeycreepers unfortunately are dying out. Also, loss of plants to pollinate from the habitat destruction has not helped out the Hawaiian honeycreepers as well. Predation, so this is going back to rodents and rats, so invasive animals, rats, mongooses. If you've ever been to Hawaii, you know you've seen mongooses around running across the street, and you know the story about mongooses, why they were brought here. And it's kind of unfortunate because these rodents came to Hawaii, whether it be on ships or introduced purposefully in the case of mongooses, and they've been eating the eggs that were in the nest of the Hawaiian honeycreepers, and they also even been known to attack small Hawaiian honeycreepers as well. And this has directly caused a decline in the population of Hawaiian honeycreepers. So what happens if they're gone? Well, Hawaii loses an important part of ecosystem and natural history, as I've been pointing out throughout this lecture. They're very important pollinators to Hawaii, and when plants lose that pollinator, they also feel the direct effect of that, and they have to sort of adjust or to try to find a new pollinator or find a new way to attract people, or no, rather attract animals to pollinate their flowers, or else these flowers can also unfortunately be affected and negatively affected and maybe even die out as well. Also, probable increase in these population that are eaten by um, Hawaiian honey creepers. Excuse me. So this necessary could be seen as a negative or positive. So species that have been eaten by Hawaiian honey creeper could possibly see also a rise in their population because that natural predator disappears. I also put that in just to show that there's more than just a direct effect on the Hawaiian honeycreepers. And lastly, it's a loss of culture as well. As I mentioned, these guys are very important in Hawaiian society when it comes to feathers and capes and legends that involve these Hawaiian honeycreepers. They're very important to Hawaiian society, and with these guys being gone, Hawaii loses that another part of their culture. So I just want to show this picture in this piece of art I found, and it's a very almost like telling and very emotional, I guess, showing the mosquitoes and the direct effect they have, and almost wreaking havoc on a Hawaiian honeycreeper. And I really think this picture really sort of nails my point of the direct effect that mosquitoes can have, and the disease they bring of malaria can have effect on these Hawaiian honeycreepers. So to maybe to a little brighter note, singing birds. So I had no idea about this, and I was definitely surprised to read about this. Honeycreepers are songbirds, or rather, they sing. Their purpose for singing is to attract mates and defend precious materials such as nests and food. So that was really interesting, and that really sort of really wanted to make me want to see these guys in person for the first time as well. That would have been so cool. They learn their songs basically through the practice, and they also hear from other birds. So basically, sort of like, I don't want to say like monkey see, monkey do, but these guys definitely learn their songs from other birds. and they use that to attract mates to reproduce, obviously nests and stuff. But unfortunately, they need to be able to learn the songs, and if the population decline, then these Hawaiian honeycreepers lose a lot of that valuable part of them of being able to sing and mate, because the less population there are, the less likely these guys are able to find or hear another um, a species being able to sing. They can be able to mimic that singing, and the less likely they are able to find mate. So without that singing, they can't mate and they can't reproduce. So there's definitely a huge effect that's going around here. So a little to more positive note, what is being done? Habitat restoration is currently being done, and that's just not for Hawaiian honeycreepers. Um, restoration projects are going out to make sure that native forests are being fixed and brought back to life. Also, native plants being brought in, so natural pollinations for these Hawaiian honeycreepers. Also, trying to find ways to eliminate mosquitoes and basically get rid of these guys so they don't have the chance to be able to spread and bring these diseases to affect the Hawaiian honeycreepers. Uh, Finding ways to get rid of predators such as rats, setting up traps. Uh, Basically, I've seen stuff as like um, um, metal trap or ways to attract these guys with base and trap them and bring them out of the forest so they don't directly affect native species in Hawaii. But also release some that's been captured and raised and release those guys back in the wild so we can bring back the population of these native Hawaiian finches, or rather Hawaiian honeycreepers. So how to help support those that are trying to bring change? Um, that can be something as doing a project that's directly related to Hawaiian honeycreepers. One thing I've learned in one of my classes in excuse me, is clean your shoes. Um, you may unknowingly bring um, invasive species into these areas. Some of these guys can get stuck on mud, and you never know. You might have some eggs from mosquitoes, for example. You can inadvertently bring these to these areas, and unfortunately, they would hatch and they would spread around and cause harm. So be careful where you are. Be careful of what you're doing. Be aware of your surrounding as well. But also plant trees in the Hawaiian ecosystem. Planting trees can definitely help. It can bring back um, many species, including the Hawaiian honeycreeper, giving them place to nest and also places to rest, and also give them protection from the elements and also predators. And also volunteer for projects that look to protect these beautiful. There's at the end I also have a couple volunteer areas or volunteer projects you can definitely take a look at, and definitely um, maybe you can do something to help them out as well. Last but not least, spread the word. Spreading the word definitely helps, and it can bring change. As I mentioned before, support those that are bringing change. Spread the word can definitely help, and hopefully this presentation can definitely help that out as well. Lasting words, changes needs to happen. Once these guys are gone, they're gone forever. And I read a stat while I was doing my research that there's a possibility by 2100 that all the Hawaiian honeycreepers can disappear. Right now, I think there's currently about 18 different Hawaiian honeycreeper species that are still around, and that's a very small amount considering to about there is known to be about over 50 different Hawaiian honeycreeper species. And I think that really shows the direct effect that over the recent years these changes have had on these um, beautiful, beautiful species. They're very important to our ecosystem. As I mentioned, they're pollinators and really can have a direct effect not only on themselves but also those that surround Hawaii's ecosystem. And as you can see, they're also very important to culturally to Hawaii. Ancient culture has mentioned in myths, and also um, you can see they're directly used in Hawaiian culture with feather helmets and feather capes used by the chiefs of Hawaii. Lastly, go out and volunteer. I know the current situation may be a little tough, but definitely take the time to do some research and go and look for possible ways you can help these guys out, because I'm sure you guys have also, wherever you guys are, might have another species that's endangered. And for me, Hawaiian honey creepers are something I really like and love, and seeing these guys disappear would definitely hurt. Considering I grew up in Hawaii, and these guys are a big part of of the Hawaiian Islands and Hawaiian ecosystem. So as I mentioned, some places to check out. Um, the Maui First Bird Recovery Project. I definitely went on their website and definitely got a lot of information from my research, and they were very, very informative and helpful. And they're not just helping Hawaiian honey creepers, but definitely a lot of other birds that are struggling right now in Hawaii, and also the Mauna Kea Forest Restoration Project are just a couple places I definitely advise you guys to check out if you guys want to learn more about Hawaiian honey creepers, but also want to maybe also help out and go out and do some restoration projects. All right, guys, that comes to the end of my presentation. Hopefully, you guys maybe took something away from it. Hopefully, you guys, the audio is all good and stuff. You guys can hear me, and really appreciate you guys watching, and definitely spread the word, guys. Thank you so much, and take care, and mahalos.